important day, and today is a very important day for a couple of different reasons. Obviously, everybody knows that 9/11 was an extraordinarily significant day in the United States of America. It was a very violent day, a terribly disruptive day, and it brought a lot of consequences in its wake. 20 years or more of war in Afghanistan, which has come to another uncertain end, releasing and launching an unpredictable future in that part of the world. Yeah. And today is also the day when Swami Vivekananda spoke at the World Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Almost exactly 108 years before 9/11 happened in America. So there was another 9/11. So there are two 9/11s that we should remember today. The first 9/11 being Swami Vivekananda's speech at the Parliament of Religions in Chicago. Of course, the second 9/11 being the attack on the World Trade Center in the United States of America. And I think as we look at the environment in which we live today, once again, there's a lot of kind of disturbance in the air, not just in Afghanistan, but now back in the United States. The Hindu community is quite rattled up and disturbed by this new conference that's starting today, called Dismantle Global Hindutva. I mean, I wonder how many of you have heard about this conference. That's also starting.
Yep, I have heard. There's a lot going on in the VV Parishad groups regarding that.
Right. So, it seems, the movement of Kali Yuga, what we call Kali Yuga in the Hindu cosmology, is that there is increased conflict, ever increasing competition, and jostling, disagreement, disputation, misalignment, dissonance, and so on. Of course, Swami Vivekananda's voice was a reconciling voice, an integrating voice. I just wanted to briefly underscore not only the environment in which we live, the significance of the day today, and the possibility that Swami Vivekananda imagined, nearly 120 years ago or so, or more. Okay, my math is not right right now. With that background, when we look at the three flavors of Vedanta, Krishnaji is asking a question: are they reconcilable? If Vedanta is not reconcilable, how will we reconcile with the rest of humanity? So obviously we can have our favorite versions of Vedanta, but how do they come together and how are they different? That's the subject of today's webinar. And I really appreciate Krishna for joining us. He's done a tremendous amount of study in this area. And I think you'll all be in excellent hands for the duration of this webinar with Krishna Kashyapji. With that, I would like to hand the webinar over back to Ankur and Krishna Kashyap. Ankur, you want to do a brief introduction of Krishnaji?
Yeah, perfect. So Sri Krishna Kashyap is currently retired and lives in India after working in the USA for almost 40 years in various areas of technology and business. Let me get the focus on you. There you go. Sri Krishna Kashyapji has devoted decades to the study of Vedanta, Sanskrit, and yoga with many traditional teachers And we'll get into them as part of this. Maybe we can name drop as we go through it. Krishnaji has focused on the true nature of Vedanta philosophy, highlighting the close relationship between the three main systems of Vedanta, namely Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, and Dvaita, by exposing major misconceptions regarding them. And everyone's at a different place in their understanding. And Sri Krishna Kashyap is a true guru who can lead us through this, engage and explore this important concept. And we're going to spend the rest of this hour doing that. And thank you, Sri Krishna Kashyap ji, for joining us and leading this underway.
Namaste to everyone. Let's do one thing. I'll go quickly through a set of slides because the slides are designed to give you some just generic overview of the course, and we'll go down straight to it. And you can stop me when you want to ask a question. We'll make it interactive, so that's easier. Let me share my screen. I can share my screen, right?
Yes. And if you want to put in the chat why you are interested in this subject, if you already are, and just your familiarity, you can just drop it in the chat if why you
in the chat.
if
in the chat. Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Yeah. Full screen. Great.
Everyone, please let me know why you're interested in this subject. Okay, so we'll put it there and we'll read the chat later. So I'm sure you've heard about the three systems, Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. They're Vedantic systems. One says everything is one, and the other, the Dvaita, says everything is separate. All the sentient beings, the insentient, and the creator, everyone is different. And Vishishtadvaita is somewhere in between. So the question is, are they reconcilable? These three views form three almost opposite views in the Vedanta that you may know. So before that, I just want to give you my personal journey. Like everybody has a personal journey. I just want to let you know where I am, who I am. That way you know what you're going to get out of this course. See, background, I come from a Orthodox family. I studied Sanskrit pretty early. And so even from young age, we are very, I should say, I grew up like a devoted person, sincere guy, and religious person. And that's what my environment was. So one day, my friend's father came and told me, I met him. So, I belong to a particular sampradaya like Ramanuja sampradaya. And he came and said, no, Krishna, I know your sampradaya. I also come from Ramanuja sampradaya, but your sampradaya is wrong. Advaita is the truth. A Ramanujacharya is only at the 3rd level. Advaita gurus are at the 7th level. So you are far behind. You are following the wrong guru. That's what my friend's father told me. I trusted him. He was a very brilliant guy. But that changed my life. I went and started learning Vedanta. I said I wanted to understand what Vedanta is because I had already gone through the sacraments following the Ramanuja Sampradaya, and suddenly I hear that that is not the right Sampradaya, and I became more like a Nastika, I should say. What happened is I went and studied Bhagavad Gita under my grandfather's brother. At that time, I got some answers to my questions, but they were insufficient. When I was about 32, 33 years old, I became an atheist. That was because I looked at science and some scientific views were not exactly compatible with the Puranic view or something in the Bhagavata Purana or somewhere. I found a lot of discrepancies. And I thought this Hindu people were just like some ancient set of people, just like the Egyptians. The Egyptians thought that they could get a lot of money, put gold, silver, everything into a pyramid and pick them up when they are dead and then use them in their next lives. So all these kind of theories they had. Maybe the Hindus had the similar theories. So I didn't believe in any of them. I became an Astika. But I was feeling very bad that coming from a very good family, why I turned out to be an Nastika or an atheist. After a couple of years of thinking, I started, all the Vedic knowledge I had studied started coming back to me. I slowly understood that there is some kind of a sadhana or a real practice or a process by which you find realization. So only then you can disprove or prove what is in the Shastras, whether Jivatmas exist, whether are we different Jivatmas, are we different from our body, is there a God? All these things become clear only when you have realization. So I thought that without realization, even to deny everything is wrong too. So you cannot deny everything without realization. That came to my mind at that time. So seeking truth was my view. Go and look at different Vedantas and understand different Vedantas and put something into practice. That was how I studied under different acharyas. And I was lucky to meet great acharyas like Srinivasa, S.M. Srinivasachari, Ananta Krishna Shastri, Maho Mahapadhyaya, Korada Subramanyam ji, Sri K.S.V., Anandarangachar, so many different acharyas I studied under them. I kept on going further. That is my background. That's my personal background. Now, if you ask a question, are these three schools of Vedanta, are they reconcilable? Immediately people say they are not reconcilable. Dvaita means totally different. Advaita means that is the right Vedanta. That means everything is one. All this is an illusion. Eventually you'll find out that is an illusion. So these are all not reconcilable schools. That is why in tradition, they have, these three groups may not marry with each other. They are separate. They think that their whole life and everything is separate. So this is some kind of an enmity is built in over years and years of tradition, which crosses about 2,000 years of tradition. So this is where we are. What I feel is they are reconcilable. This is what I found out through the lot of study of over 30, 40 years of study under great acharyas. Most people try to understand only one system. It's natural. They are born in that system or they get very highly influenced by a particular system. They follow that system. Maybe Advaita, maybe Dvaita, maybe Vishishtadvaita, maybe some other flavor of Vedanta like the Gaudiya Sampradaya or Shuddhadvaita Sampradaya or something. And they don't care about the other systems of thought. And one system itself is so deep, you can bury yourself for years studying stuff in one system of thought. Unless you know other systems of thought and try to understand at least fundamentals of different systems of thought, you won't be able to figure out whether they are reconcilable or not. Just a second, let me see. And another thing is, belief system is very strong in families. You will be ostracized if you think that you believe in a different acharya, but your family believes in a particular acharya. It's just so much of resistance for you to get out of a particular system and learn the another system. So that's also true. And each system has separate types of sadhanas. Advaita have its own sadhana. Vishishtadvaita has its own sadhana, method of worship, method of realization and stuff like that. So each one can get different convictions. There's no doubt about it. All I can say is what I have found in my life is that I met a number of teachers. I asked tough questions, and I found some extremely brilliant people in my life whom I consider they know a lot. Of course, I have not met everyone. I'm open to learning. I always want to learn something new and be open to every system of thought. So life is like a fast flowing river. I've gone through it. Now I'm 63 years old. So I'm sure there's a lot I don't understand. I will always try to understand though. The bottom line is, unless you go to a summit and try to look at different systems from a height, you won't understand the differences between the systems. What we are going to do in our class in the Bhagavad Gita and 3 flavors of Vedanta, we are going to address these issues. Try to bring everybody to a particular level where they can see these systems separately and experience and enjoy their diversity, uniqueness, and figure out the relationship between them. Only when you see from the top, unconnected, as if you are just a witness, then you can see how these 3 systems are related. They're not against each other. They are just members of the same Vedanta society with minor different viewpoints. We'll figure out why the viewpoints exist. Just a river, if you see from this side of the river, you see a different view. If you go near the tree, you see a different view from here. So just when in reality itself has so many different views, there's nothing like a one-sided view of reality, right? Similarly, think about what we study. We study physics. We study chemistry, biology, psychology. Do you think each system has its own specialization? Biology specializes in some things. Physics specializes in fundamental particles. But still, they don't attack each other. They coexist. So different sciences can coexist. Similarly, even in physics, you apply different equations when it comes to low speeds and low size. When the sizes are less than 10 to the power of -9 meter, you apply different laws like classical, quantum, and relativistic mechanics. Similarly, philosophy, Vedanta can be all coexisting, but slightly different views. So common to all the systems is the belief in the Veda system, the karma theory, and somehow jivas are all of us are stuck here. And bhakti is very important in all 3 schools of thought. This is common, which we know, right? So there's already a lot of commonality built into this Vedanta. So fundamentally, what is the search for Vedanta? What is the purpose of the Vedanta? You see, there is a goal, and the Vedas say Brahman is the goal. Brahman is the creator. Brahman is the sustainer. Brahman is the goal. We need to understand who the Brahman is. Who are we? What is the nature of us? We are trying to understand. And what is the method to get to the goal? And if you go to the goal, what do you find? What is the nature of the fruit? And why are we not able to get to the goal? That is a Prapti Virodhi. These are the fundamental points addressed by all Vedantas. And we're going to go through them also. But when do we really get samanvaya, reconciliation between these 3 schools? Each one has different way to get there. Only when we realize, we understand that these 3 systems somehow come together. Or you have to study them very carefully to understand how they are not distinctly different systems of thought. Stop me if you have a question, because we can make this interactive and we can go further also eventually. Any questions at this point? Good. Many people agree that 49% agree that these systems are reconcilable. That's a very good thought. So we have a group of people who are quite mature in Vedanta.
Yeah, and so if you have a specific question you want to ask, you can drop it in the Q&A box. Rajesh Ramamurthy's asked written material that you can share. Well, these webinars, and earlier I asked how many people are first-time attendee, regular attendee, and somewhere in between. It's a mix of people, as you would expect. So recordings of this webinar will be made available if you registered. As Krishnaji mentioned, there's a whole course that he will be teaching as part of Hindu University of America in the fall. And we are honored to have him as an instructor. And this webinar right here is kind of the bird's eye view. And we're going to try and get as much knowledge and share the experience with so many people. We have over 144 people now joining us. I know as a participant, you can't see that. So I always like to let you know, especially if we cross that 100 mark, we had over 400 people register. And so if you type in the Q&A box,
I see a few questions here.
you can see it also, Krishnaji. So yeah, if you want to pull from there as well.
Do you have some written material that you can share? I can send out my presentation to you. That's a simple start. And that will also give you an overview of the course also. We will talk about the overview of the course also. And the other thing is, I'm actually going to answer this via voice, okay? One person says, Rajesh Ramamurthy says, I'm interested because I understand Advaita Vedanta where I can follow the logic of Aham Brahmasmi via Advaita, but I'm not sure about it from the other two flavors. What we're going to do is, we will talk about all the three systems of thought, how they are different, how they may be similar, and we'll also go get an overview of the Bhagavad Gita and see how these three systems view the Bhagavad Gita differently. That's the whole idea of the course. Is there a danger? The second one, anonymous attendee says, is there a danger in watering down one's sadhana by mixing practices, or is it a matter of not having the intensity to practice any one of them fully? Interesting question. See, initially, for me, I can only answer from my perspective in a way because it's hard. Each one has a different perspective from their own lifestyle and their own personal choices. For me, I could not understand my own system of thought unless I knew how is it different from the other systems of thought. Is there an advantage to one over the other or not? And why am I believing in what I'm believing? Why is a different system has a totally different view on the same subject? These things help me understand my own system to a higher level of depth. I don't even call anything as my own system. The reason is I started in Ramanuja Sampradaya, but after I learned from great acharyas from all different schools of thought, I feel that all these three systems are valid, simultaneously parallel processes, and they have different viewpoints, but they're not diametrically opposite to each other. So my sadhana does not get affected by this knowledge at all for me. And for that, you need to, probably think a little bit. I'm hoping all of us who are attending in this class are beyond 15, 16 years of age. They're adults, something like close to adults or something. So for any such person, when you go and study science, you study Newton's laws of nature. You also study Einstein's relativity. You study other systems, but that doesn't affect you. It, in fact, enhances your knowledge. So I think that this will not water down any sadhana. As far as I think, it should not matter. Where does the next question is, Raghu, where does Traitavada figure in? I didn't understand what is Traitavada, honestly. I have not heard the term Traitavada. Dvaitavada, I know. I know Vishishtadvaita, and I know Advaita. Traita, if you say it is actually Trimata, that is a different question. So I don't know the question very well.
Yeah, so you can reformulate that question and come down. Did you get through your whole presentation, or do you want to take questions? Just giving it back to you.
No, I thought I would just finish a few questions and then get to the presentation, because I want to make it interactive. That way I'm addressing what they are thinking before giving a big lecture in some direction, right? So just want to get to it. I'll just answer 3 more questions and get back to the slides and get back to the question and answers later. So 3 more questions. Somnath Sinha says, how did Sri Adi Shankara achieve so much at such an young age? Wow, it blows me away. So I don't know. Some divine person, I say, if you can think of it, there are some musicians like Bach. They achieved so much at a young age. How did they achieve? We don't know. So many things in science and in life we may not be able to answer very well. So there are some very gifted people in the world, and Shankaracharya is definitely one of them. Out of the 7 darshanas, up to 7 darshanas, there are 3 darshanas. What about the others? Oh, this we will think about it later. Here we are going to do in our introductory class, we talk about the darshanas. In fact, darshanas are not the way to look at. Like this Shad darshanas, 6 darshanas is not the way to think about the Hindu thought. The Hindu thought is from the Rishis. They are from the 14 Vidyasthanas, and we'll go into depth in regarding them. The next one is from Dilip Pilaipakam. Can you help reconcile the concept of Brahman between the 3 systems? They seem very different views of Brahman. They seem to be very different views on Brahman. Of course, we are going to talk about this. A majority of our course will deal with this question. Why don't we do one thing? Last question I will take, and then we will stop and go back. The last question is, anonymous entity. God is not something to be conceived by mind. Then why is it being discussed by using mind, sense organs, and based on individuals' experiences of life? Extremely good question. Definitely God is beyond mind, beyond words and mind. Yato vacho nivartante apra apya manasa saha, that is the Taittiriya Upanishad. Says the words come back without understanding Brahman. Similarly, minds are unable to perceive Brahman. The Vedanta says slightly differently. Vishuddhena manasa grahyaha. If you purify your mind, then you can see Brahman. The purification of mind is all the sadhana practices said in the Vedantas. So we will get to that, and that is the whole idea of the Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is a sadhana shastra, which gives us the idea of the paths of the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, which will purify your mind and gets divine blessings so that you can perceive Brahman. So that is the path of Vedanta. So with this, I'm going to stop the questions and go back to Siddharth Balaji's question after a few minutes. We'll get back to the presentation here. Okay. We're going to be talking about Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita in the course. Now, let's see if my presentation moves further. Okay. See, these 3 systems, Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, they are for different aspirants. After long study, these people, you may agree or you may not agree. In fact, the whole point of the course is, I want you all to disagree and question me when I come to the reconciliation. Because if somebody says, is reconciliation possible? Definitely it is possible. Think about it. The textbooks are common between Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. The Vedas, Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, Bhagavad Gita, they're all common. Interpretations are slightly different. Each one has slightly different interpretations because they also address different kinds of aspirants. For example, Advaita addresses the higher level aspirants, maybe a small percentage of the aspirants. I'm just putting as 1%. It's fairly right. Shankaracharya says there are 2 types of people, jnanis and ajnanis. Ajnanis are ignorant, jnanis are knowledgeable. But his bar is very high. His, his definition of karma, jnani is like Shuka Maharshi or somebody like that. So for them, the path he has chosen is direct flight. That means he looks at the goal, he goes straight to the goal, like an airplane path or the path of a bird called the Shukapatha. So that is the way Advaita deals with it, because it doesn't want to deal too much with the complications about karma, jnana, and all those things. They know the path, directly they go into that. It works for the highly evolved, spiritually advanced people. Dvaita, on the other hand, addresses 99% of the people. Why? Because Dvaita, Bheda is fundamental. That is, difference is fundamental. Difference is eternal for them. Difference, that's what is the model they suggest you to think, right? There is always difference between creator, the created, and every aspect, the matter and beings. Everything, they're different. Dvaita goes and says that you have to go step by step. This is known as the Pipilika Patha, or the path of the ant. When ant smells a mango or something, and if the ant wants to eat the mango, it slowly goes through a different arduous path, comes to the root of the tree, climbs up the stalk of the tree, goes to the branch, and finally figures out where that mango is and starts going towards it. So there's a step-by-step path. Both Vishishtadvaita and Advaita are step-by-step paths. Vishishtadvaita tries to look at some aspects of Vedanta which Advaita avoids. For example, the Upadana Karanatva, the material causality of the universe, Brahman becoming the universe, is addressed in the Advaita and Vishishtadvaita, but not in the Dvaita. They think that that is not useful, that concept is wrong, and in fact, that concept reduces the devotion or the bhakti of an ordinary person towards God. So bhakti is fundamental to Dvaita. So they take a different approach. Vishishtadvaita takes somewhere an in-between approach. So these are reconcilable because they address different kind of aspirants. I looked at the Bhagavad Gita and thought that, initially thought that these systems are very different from each other, like Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, they're like non-intersecting sets. That's not true. In reality, there's a lot of commonality in Bhagavad Gita. Shankara Bhashya, Ramanuja Bhashya, and Madhva Bhashya, there's a lot of commonality. There is an agreement between all these systems. So we will go through what are the common views and what are the different views in this course. In fact, this particular slide is very important. If you look at the Vedanga, the 14 sources of knowledge, the 4 Vedas and the 6 Vedangas, and the 4 supporting Shastras called the Upangas, which is Nyaya, Mimamsa, Purana, and Dharma Shastra, all are common to all these systems. Dharma Shastra, Itihasa, Ramayana, they're common. Bhagavad Gita is inside the Mahabharata. So if you look at the scriptures, they're all mostly common for all these systems, Smriti and the Shrutis. The Smritis are the remembered information from the great rishis who remembered things and told us. Shruti is direct realization of these rishis. So differences are always possible, right? Over thousands of years, information was transmitted over several thousand years. Vedas were dated like 4,500 before the Common Era. And since then, so many interpretations would be there. And obviously, Vishishtadvaita, Dvaita, and Advaita having slightly different views are acceptable. They're not separate religions. They come from the same source. So there are no wars between these systems. No, maybe arguments. So one more thing is, difference is possible when you look at a concrete, thing like a tree or a tiger. But when you look at a mind or consciousness or jiva or spiritual entity, we don't see it. So the difference of opinion is very obvious. So the one commonality in all the systems is bhakti. Shankaracharya's views and other acharyas' views are very, very clear. Shankaracharya says, Moksha Karana Samagyam Bhaktireva Gariyasi. Among the paths to moksha, bhakti is the superior path. That's what he says. So reconciliation is, my acharya says, Tesham Hridayam Ekameva. These acharyas' heart is one. They're not different. The differences are created later and people stuck to the differences and they don't have that much value. So what are we teaching in this course, right? We go through Bhagavad Gita as per 3 acharyas and the commonly accepted structure of the outline of the Bhagavad Gita, summary of the Bhagavad Gita according to these 3 acharyas, reconciliation between these 3 schools. I have broken it up in such a way that there are 5 days, 5 lectures on the 3 systems of thought, separately as theory, 5 classes on the Bhagavad Gita and the views of these acharyas on the Bhagavad Gita. So the way I've divided is like this. I'm already teaching this. I will be teaching this second time now. This semester already we are teaching this course. I have finished 8 lectures out of 10, 2 or 3 more remaining this quarter. So
I've dropped a link in the chat, also the time and detail. Sorry to interrupt, Krishnaji.
Yeah, please do. Please, for the registration, for course registration and things like that, please do. And so we will go through some reconciliation also, right? So what can a student understand in this? The fundamental perspective of what the doctrines of Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. What are the philosophical differences they'll be able to understand? Concepts of karma, jnana, and other things. Bhakti yoga. And the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. So you will definitely get some core idea of Upanishads. And also the pathways, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga. This will be explained in some detail. And the concept of surrender, which is common to all the schools of thought, will be explained. So what is unique about our view? Luckily, I studied Sanskrit quite in depth. I'm very, very familiar with Sanskrit. So we don't really deal with too many English translations of the original bhashyas. We directly go to the bhashyas, get the summary out of it, and explain the summary out of it. So you can question me to any depth on these bhashyas and commentaries and misunderstandings, understandings, questions. You can do anything about it. Luckily, I have very good teachers who have taught me what to tell you. We are not going to look at derived verbs like somebody's view of Bhagavad Gita, Lokmanya Tilak's view of Bhagavad Gita, somebody else's view of Bhagavad Gita. We are not going to deal much about it. We will directly deal with the Shankaracharya's Bhashya, Ramanujacharya's Bhashya, and Madhvacharya's Bhashya. Maybe a few authors post these acharyas who might have some special views on this. Except that, we are not going to deal with other texts. Honestly, we have lecture is 1.5 hours and maybe a little bit extra question answers every week. Quizzes will be almost every week. And there will be a topic of paper, summary of the Matatraya, or the 3 commentaries on the Gita, and the relationship between these 3 schools. That will be the summary topic, which is like 5 pages, 10 pages, maybe 1,000-word essay you need to write at the end. So I keep the load very low because conceptually, I want you to understand what this is about. So conceptually, you have to, if you go through the quizzes, you'll probably get a lot out of it. Attendance is absolutely necessary. If you attend my classes, you will know the concepts, and you can also interactively ask me questions. Sometimes I also, for very interested students, they may have some real questions and they have asked me to dedicate some separate time. I have had one-to-one sessions with them. So I don't mind having them if I'm not busy. So this is the overview of the structure of the course. If you have any questions, we can go ahead. If we have questions already on the Q&A, we can go one by one from them. All right. So we'll open up the Q&A. I think we stopped at Siddharth Balaji. 2 out of these 3 systems are today predominantly Vaishnava Sampradaya. How does this affect their reconciliation with each other? We will deal with the Dvaita issue is not a complex issue. You can pray, worship any deity, and still worship the Brahman or the one Atma of the Upanishads. So there is no issue regarding this. And this one we will go into details. In the 7th, 8th, 9th chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they talk about this in detail. Anand Dabak says, is the Buddhistic view which may not believe in the Vedas reconcilable with the Vedantic view from the consciousness perspective? Yes, it is reconcilable. This is a very, very good question, hard question, and we will talk about it in our course where we do to a certain extent reconcile with the Buddhists also. Joe Santana is asking, what is the most effective approach in implementing the teachings from these three systems? We will talk about sadhana. First thing is mind control. Mind control is common to all these systems of thought. Then how do we do mind control? We'll talk about it in the second chapter. We'll go into details. And that's an excellent question, by the way.
And Krishnaji, if you want to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry, stop sharing. Good, thank you.
Yeah.
The
I have one more maybe poll I can just put up to. We did the are they reconcilable, but I can just ask about enrollment. I see a lot of people asking about timing. I know because we are trying to get people from all over the world, the timing is an issue. I know it trying to schedule it out, but I don't know if you have thoughts on that. But I'm going to ask you right now, are you interested in enrolling in the course? You know, yes, no, maybe I have questions, you know, the timing, just put it down, and we'll do some follow-up and figure that out. Unless Krishnaji, you want to talk specifically about that now. But, you know, Hindu University of America offers courses every quarter on a range of subjects. This is so important. And I think people put in the chat, this is going to give some very insightful looks into a whole important section. But Krishnaji, and the second time you're teaching it, I'm sure people, if you have any, I don't know if we have any students who are in it now, if we have one reflections on that, or if you want to talk about that as well, because that sounds interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if any of my current students are attending this webinar. I've had excellent time teaching this course. I found students extremely interested. They're asking mind-boggling questions, some which all relate to their lives, their certain current problems they're facing. So another thing about this question is it's such a overview course. We go to the core of the problem of the Vedanta and anything Vedanta has to say about life. We talk about it in entirety, how the Vedas came, how they were realized, what are the four states, the Turiya Avastha, how a person can go beyond the states of wake, sleep, and deep and dream, and come to a fourth state and come and go towards realization. We go through a lot of things, how the rishis found the truth and told us the truth. And because this is like an overview course, you will get to know all this, the Vedantas from a bird's eye view perspective, right? Like as if you're flying over and you know the differences. Once you know that, you can focus on in depth on a particular type of sadhana or a particular type of system and go much more detailed. So this would be almost like a fundamental course, eventually, which will help you understand anything about the Upanishads, anything about the Brahma Sutras, anything about even the Puranas like the Bhagavata, Vishnu Purana, Shiva Purana, Lalita Purana, and other Puranas. So all these thoughts will be, in a essence, dealt with in a crash course, in a way, 11 weeks, quite heavy, not on homework, but heavy on conceptual thinking and just understanding.
And I'd also like to say we're going to offer a $100 discount. So instead of the full price of $300, it's going to be $200 for the next day or two. I know some people are already registered. Some people are having some trouble. Just shoot me an email. I'll put my email in the chat and we'll get you registered. And this is going to be, like you're saying, this bird's eye view. I'm so interested in taking this course also, but it's always exciting to see and the interaction that you get in a live course like this. And you know, click the link, register right now.
You know, to tell you honestly, many people in my course today are sending me information. How can we connect with you after this course so that we constantly work with you, understand this in depth? We have so many questions unanswered. We would like to have a longer relationship so that we understand. Almost like they're asking me to continue and help them out. Not that I know everything. It's just that I have enough number of people who teach me who can in turn help us give the information to you. Okay, the next question here, let me take the next question. I would like to know your views on Adi Shankara, Madhvacharya, and Ramanujacharya and how they influence these thought streams. Obviously, we will be talking about these three acharyas definitely in our course. I have to say this is not a history course where we go into the details of their lifestyle, because there is a book written on there are 4 books written on the Adi Shankara's Shankara Vijaya, and they were written from 3 or 4 different people. Vidyaranya wrote one, Anandagiri or somebody wrote one. So Madhvacharya's life history is written by several people. Ramanujacharya's life history. These are slightly more historic and story oriented, and they're very important, but we will only say a few things about their lives in this course. So our course is more conceptual. It applies to how they follow Vedanta today. And Professor Sundaravalli Narayanaswamy is asking, Vaishnavism strictly proposes monotheism or not? Is it not fundamentally against Sanatana Dharma? We worship all forms of nature, Gauri, Gana, Ganga Mata and all. No, the Bhagavad Gita does not say it is strictly monotheism. In fact, the way the Vishwarupa, what Sri Krishna shows Arjuna, shows every devata in the Vishwarupa. Everything is included in the Vishwarupa. So even the Vedanta is not monotheistic. So the thing is, Vaishnava and these some Vaishnava systems follow fundamentally. They follow. Even there is a difference. Dvaita follows other devatas also, but there is a gradation in the Dvaita system. Vishishtadvaita follows slightly differently. So that's all like personal choice and all well within the gamut of Vedanta. So there's not controversial or there's nothing wrong about it. Please try to define the Sanskrit terms that you use. What is it? Oops, I missed it. It went away.
Yeah, no, just define the Sanskrit terms that you're using. And, that's one of for those of us with limited Sanskrit knowledge, but interested in learning. And I know that's always a challenging thing. You probably have a broader piece that you want to discuss on this.
Definitely, we will explain every Sanskrit term in English. It can become a little heavy in Sanskrit here and there, but I'm definitely going to, you stop me where, if you don't understand, I will explain to you further. But I will also, without anybody asking, will be explaining everything in English. The next question from Anil Srivastava, Vedas say Atmavit Viduhu, experience by self-realized soul. Only talking anything using mind does not take anywhere. It's a very good point. Yes, sadhana or realization is fundamental and not just studies. But what happens is Vedas themselves give you 3 levels. What they say is Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Atmavare, Drashtavyo, Shrotavyo, Mantavyo, Nididhyasitavya. That means you have to hear the Vedas, you have to understand the Vedas, you have to contemplate, think about the Vedas, understand them very clearly, then do Nididhyasana or Dhyana or meditation to realize Brahman. So everything, first we are doing the first 2 steps first. And the realization is a separate portion which you have to do it on your own or go through some acharya or a guru to get there. Next comes the anonymous attendee. Aham Brahmasmi is from the Mundakopanishad, which is common to all 3 philosophies. So how do we justify the statement from 3 fundamental philosophies? This can be justified. If this is a longer answer, I cannot answer here. We will definitely deal with this in the coursework. How to understand Aham Brahmasmi from all 3 perspectives. And in fact, we will explain the Mahavakyas based on the Ramanujacharya view, Madhvacharya view, and the Shankaracharya view. We will explain that. I'm 80 years old, 1963 IIT KGP USA, a PhD when I got interested in Sanskrit and Vedanta. 1968-71. Okay, question. What is the question there? I don't understand.
I think, so Q&A box questions, if you have just a statement, you could put it in the chat.
So the question is probably that, will this help, this course help? Definitely this course would be of high value. Right now we have students above the age of 75 attending my class right now, and they're all enjoying. They can't wait to get to the next class.
Yeah, and the same person is Yash. He's he has a couple other comments further on, but yeah, we can follow up, and
We can.
he put his email, so I'll follow with them specifically.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for your participation.
Yep. The next question is from Naveen Chandra. I compared the three philosophies to three approaches physics adopts. First, Galileo's deterministic approach. I compared it with Madhvacharya's Dvaita. Second is Einstein approach, which is compared with Vishishtadvaita. Last, Bohr's approach, applicable to quantum world, which I compare with. Can you kindly shed light on this, please? Why don't we take this up when we come there? We first have to define Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita first, and then connect it to the scientific views. We will definitely think about it in the class. Right now, I can say that these are approximations here. We have to go much more deeper to really get to the even the definition of this question. Anil Srivastava writes, Nayamatma pravachanena labhyana medhyana bhavanashrutena. When this is true for Atma, then how about Paramatma? So many mantras talk about the divine same way. But do you think one experience self and supreme God by the knowledge of Dvaita? Okay, this Nayamatma pravachanena labhya, that word Atma there does not refer to Jivatma. That Atma refers to Parabrahman or Brahman only there. So one can experience self and supreme by this knowledge of definitely not. Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita are like models. You like a risk model in banking. There are models, so you can use any of this or a combination of this. It depends on the aspirant. What are the prerequisites of the course? The prerequisites, the way I look at it is just maturity in life and true understanding, true seeking attitude that you want to know what life is, what is Vedanta, what is the goal, what is the methodology, what will I get there? If you have these fundamental questions in your mind, this course will be very helpful to you. And then Sanskrit requirement is not there. So there is no real pre-requirement. I'm going to explain this from almost first principles.
Great. And kind of on that note, we still have over 117 people in, and we're getting into a very interactive, there's still like 16 open questions. But at Hindu University of America, this is part of our continuing education curriculum, right? Wherever you are in life, you can plug in and benefit from Krishnaji's wisdom on a weekly basis in a structure where you log in, and if there's specific readings and, everything from attendance. So Hindu University of America is a platform for us to have these higher level conversations all year round. So these weekly webinars, depending on the Saturday and what the subject is and what's going on, they can be very different. But this is the goal right here, to have these kinds of conversations, interact, grow ourselves, and get on that dharmic path. So Krishnaji, we still have 16 open questions depending on how much time you have. I know it's late.
I want to answer as many questions as possible. I don't want to have any limits, because I want them each one to understand what we are about, right? Only when we answer the questions, they know what are we made of.
Exactly. Yeah, and I'm right here with you doing it. Thank you. So we have Somnaji raise his hand in the attendance window. I don't know if it's easier to put it in the Q&A box because we can just read through it, and Krishnaji is like wants to take it that way. But maybe at the end we can take hands if people want to voice audio. I don't know if you have any students in your class that want to make a statement.
Yeah, we can ask live questions, and they can ask live questions also. I can just quickly go through these questions and see where we can end up, right?
Yeah.
Raja is asking, after completing the course, will we be able to explain each of these philosophies to someone who is asking about them? I asked because our local Gita class, we read several commentaries. Definitely. In fact, several of the students today who are attending are leading their own groups locally in their communities. This course will help you understand and explain to them different philosophies, and we'll do our best to give you the information. Shanta Srivastava is asking, does the course require any memorization? No, not at all. If you want to memorize, it will be helpful to you. That's totally up to you. Isn't the reconciliation more of an academic endeavor? Does the common man, woman who is deeply immersed in the sampradayas ever want to appreciate reconciliation? It depends on the person. The thing is, if you think that, well, why am I following Madhva Sampradaya? Why am I following Advaita Sampradaya or Shankara Sampradaya? if you have your own doubts, then you will know how to answer that questions. If you don't have any doubts and you are totally convinced about a particular school, and I don't even want to look at the other schools, then there's no use of reconciliation because you don't want to get reconciled or you don't have any doubts. It's totally personal. What do Indians pay for this course, please? I don't know what it means.
We don't have different pricing for different locations yet. We're looking into it. I know it's a difficult thing talking about what we do have a Bharat scholarship. I'll drop a link to that in the chat. You got to prove residence, and then for certain courses we have some. We also have we were calling it Girmitya, like for the Hindu diaspora, especially in the Caribbean. We have a few scholarships for different people in different parts of the world where the dollar doesn't translate exactly. I'll drop that in the chat right now. Thank you for that question. I should have shared.
Good question. Yeah, thank you. Rajendra Paul asked, Vedanta is last of the 6 darshanas of the Vedanta darshan. 7 of the darshanas are Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Achintya, Veda, Vedakshya, Purushottam. Why are you excluding 5 other darshanas and 4 other Vedantas of darshan? Very good question. See, originally, when Vedanta came into being, Advaita was the first Vedanta darshana which became popular. The second came Vishishtadvaita. The third came Dvaita. And the rest of the Vedantas came much later. In fact, we can say on the 2 extreme ends are Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita. Dvaita is complete Bheda or difference. Advaita is complete oneness. And somewhere in between is the Vishishtadvaita. If you look at the other schools of Vedanta, there's a lot of information they have borrowed from these 3 different schools of thought to come up to their school of thought. So knowing those fundamental 3 schools are known as Trimata Bhashya. One more thing is, when you study, if you have like 7 or 8 different darshanas and try to study, you will get confused. You want to study at least, some people only study 1 darshana first completely, and then go to the other darshanas. Now we don't want to do it in this class because we are just taking 3 fundamentally different views and going further with it. The rest of the darshanas will have a combination of it. For example, this Akshara Purushottama Darshana was introduced only in the last 300 years ago. And we know a lot of people from those darshanas, and they have taken a lot from the prior darshanas. What days and times are the classes? Are they recorded so that they can be viewed? Yes, they are recorded, but the timings will be announced very shortly, I think.
Right now we've got it at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, right? Eastern time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific time. It's pretty early for you in India time, right?
So for me, 8:30 p.m., right? You're saying 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. So 8:30 is 2.5 hours. 6 a.m. for me, right?
6 a.m.
Oh yeah, I planned it that way.
We're going to have the time change in the middle of the course
exactly.
also.
The 6 a.m. will become 7 a.m. within the couple of weeks or something like that, right? So no issue. For me, I planned it that way that I get up very early in the morning and teach. So it's okay.
And then I just answered again in the chat. It's right there on the course link. If you click through the link for the course that I've dropped in the chat, you see those details. First date is October 11th. The last day will be December 20th.
The next question is Srinivas Adavi. How do Shaiva Vaishnava reconcile with this system? Very simple, they can be reconciled. So the thing is, see, each person takes a deity and takes that itself as Brahman and final and does all the worship. Then it is valid according to Vedanta. In fact, in the Brahma Sutras, they talk about Indra Pranadhikarana, and that goes into in-depth. We will deal with it in the class. Why praying to different deities basically end up being the praying to one Brahman, because every deity is a form of Brahman that is valid and there is no problem with it. Are all sampradayas out of Vedas? Yes, there are Buddhism and Jainism are not out of Vedas. They don't relate to it. The other systems are Vedika. Could you explain now how the 3 systems view moksha? The 3 systems, Dvaita always say that even if you go to moksha, you experience Brahman as separate. There, for Dvaita, Hari is the Brahman. Hari is different, and the others are always sevakas or attendants of that Lord, that Hari. In the in the Advaita, one becomes that Brahman. So the thing is, there is identity in moksha. In Vishishtadvaita, still there is some separation, but very, very similar experience. And that is Brahman and Jivas will have ultimate similarity in experience. They are almost one, but not one. So the Jivas cannot become the creators of the universe after attaining moksha, but they will experience ultimate real close relationship to the Lord. Next is, do you think all so-called religions can be put as branches of a tree built over Vedanta as a structure? The thing is, Vedanta, you can build it over a single structure of Vedanta. So with, see, we have to understand what Vedanta comes out of realization. The Vedas are unlimited. So it comes out of clearly realization. So any system of thought can be structured within this tree. We'll talk about it later, about how it can be done. I am just starting to learn Veda and Vedanta. Do you recommend any specific book before coming to start attending this course? No need to have any specific book. Whatever you're doing, you continue with it. We are going to choose Bhagavad Gita as the subject and the three Vedantas as different views. And SS, do you teach any courses in Bengaluru, sir, in-person class? In person, I'm not teaching anything. COVID and all the problems totally don't let us do any such in-person teachings here. We'll talk about it later. I do teach other courses on my own personal time. They're different. All Zoom courses. Rajesh Ramamurthy, how much of out-of-class work is there in the course? Not much. It depends on you. How much ever you are interested, you can study. If you don't want to study much, just listen to the course and answer the quizzes if you want. That's all. It's not heavy duty. That's why it is a, what do you call, continuing education type of course. It's not like a high-level PhD graduate level or something like that. In terms of time commitment, it's not that much. Attending classes important, and quizzes will be automatic. You can just do quizzes in half an hour if you understand the classes. After this course, do we still need a guru for self-realization? Obviously, we don't guarantee self-realization at the end of the course. That is not the certificate we give you. The self-realization is a very, very complex problem. Very good question, though. Excellent question. Thank you. Dilip Pilaipakam. You said every deity is a form of Brahman. That seems to be in conflict with Advaita philosophy of Nirguna Brahman. So the thing is, in Advaita philosophy, there is two Brahmans. One is Saguna Brahman, one is Nirguna Brahman. Nirguna Brahman is not worshipable. You cannot worship Nirguna Brahma. You cannot do Upasana on Nirguna Brahma. So you have to do only Saguna Brahma and Saguna Upasana, then only get to Nirguna Brahman. The next question, could not the classes be on weekends, say Sunday morning, say Saturday morning? If you miss a class, would the sessions be available later? The sessions will be recorded, so it will definitely be available later. If you miss a class, you can immediately follow. Many of our students do that constantly, but they communicate via email, and sometimes they communicate via phone calls. They keep separate like 30-minute slots with me, where if they have some specific questions, they ask me and I try to answer.
Great. So Krishnaji, we have just under 100 people now, 98 still. Let me share the poll results. So a lot of people do have maybe this timing question. We'll look into this a little bit, but I think this course for this fall quarter is set. We'll look into a future, but we'll follow up and have the conversation, and offline we'll discuss that. But it is available offline as was discussed. We've got just a few more questions and a few hands. So if, we're looking at assigned readings. and the textbooks readings will be just put into what we have is a learning management system where all this stuff is accessible, including the recordings, including any readings, including the Zoom link to get into that particular course, including the quizzes. So if you haven't taken any courses at Hindu University of America, we're building the infrastructure to make this all easy so Krishnaji can focus on that course time, that class time with you, and you can have that interaction with him. And so I'll drop the link to enroll one more time. And Krishnaji, some maybe concluding thoughts. We have two people, Somnathji and Rajendra Palji, who has their hands up for maybe some audio questions also.
Please go ahead. Let them ask.
All right, Somnathji, let's see. You can now talk if you unmute yourself, probably.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you. Oh no, Somnathji, we can't hear you.
I cannot hear.
No. Okay, so maybe it stepped out. Rajendraji, let me let's give you that. Let's try and keep the question short. Yeah, I know I've been in courses with Rajendraji with Raj Vedam, and it's always good to have you join us. If you can keep it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go
Yes,
ahead.
right now I can hear you.
Okay, thank you for taking my question. One of the important thought I heard today was while these three Upadarshanas of Vedanta Darshana and the other total six out of the 6 darshanas, these are actually founded on the Chaturdash Vidya, the 14 Vidya slide you put, the Vedas
Sure.
and 6 Vedangas and the 4 other aspects.
Sure.
So these, all of this, the darshanas, Upadarshanas, as well as Vedas, as I grasp it, are to not philosophy, but actually the real, what we call today, not just even metaphysics, it is metabiology, metachemistry, it is meta of everything. This is, so of the creation itself, basically. So how is this creation? Where did it come? How does it work? It goes to these higher level things is what my sense of the Vedic culture is. Vedas are about this. So are these darshanas, Upadarshanas. So if this is the case, my personal question to you is, why not go to the source, since these are really interpretations? I mean, it is possible to have another darshana, nothing preventing that. So how to approach the study of, not study, because this is not just a jnana yoga, it requires karma yoga, bhakti yoga, all this, sadhana, complete sadhana. So how can you share maybe at least your experience on what were turning important things in your experience that really give you the booster at sometimes in your journey? Thank you.
Okay, great.
So what you're, let me try to understand your question. You're trying to ask me in my personal experience, which helps me go deeper into it or something like that, or what are you asking?
Yeah, just look. Just kind of, I was a little lost on it also.
Yeah. So my question is, this all these darshanas, Vedas are really about grasping the creation as it is, including the creator in it or separate from it or different way. So if that is the path and Vedas are the foundation, how, like, why are we going around the Vedas? Why not go to Vedas? Or I'm trying to grasp.
No. Good point. See, when you say Vedas, there are 2 parts in the Vedas, right? Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda, right? The Jnana Kanda is the Upanishad Bhaga. The Karma Kanda are the mantras. Brahmana, Mantra, Samhita are there, right? So, learning the Vedas, Karma Kanda is quite difficult. So there are schools which you have to learn about 10 years to really understand what the texts are and understand the swaras and the how to pronounce it, and also what is the meaning of it. The Jnana Kanda are the Upanishads, right? And Upanishads are like 10 major, one of them, and there may be like 220 different Upanishads. So understanding them is a separate subject. Definitely, it's very hard, right? In these kind of small quarter sessions, you can't understand those directly. Bhagavad Gita definitely is a summary. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopalanandanaha. That means the essence of all the Upanishads are there in the Bhagavad Gita. In 700 verses, all the essence is summarized in a wonderful way by Sri Krishna. So understanding that would give you the essence of the Vedas and Upanishads anyway. So this is a simpler way of trying to understand the essence, what you're trying to think about at this point.
Yeah, and there's always different paths, and as you give more attention to different scriptures, and we have courses on that too. It's your personal choice on what to get at and where to start. So I hope you will start with this course with Sri Krishna Kashyap ji, 3 Flavors of Vedanta, and drop the link again. Last few questions, Krishna ji, if you can start maybe giving those concluding ideas and wrap up. We have just a few more questions. I think one.
Where are the questions? Yeah.
So Bala Iyer is talking about darshanas.
Okay, Raghuji is asking Traitavada, that is Traita, as known as Veda Trinity, is a Hindu philosophy in which Brahman, God, Jiva, and Prakriti matter are separate entities that exist eternally. See, the Traitavada is similar to Dvaitavada. So even in the Vishishtadvaita, these 3 are distinct to a certain extent, right? So only in the creation phase or in the Laya phase, there is a problem there. So these are not different. When we deal with the Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita, all these 3 systems deal with these three entities, particularly the Dvaita and the Vishishtadvaita view. So there is no issue here about it. We are going to deal with it in our class too. Next question is from Bala and Ayarji. You are using the terms darshanas for many things. I read about 6 astika darshanas and 4 darshanas. You're mentioning about 7 or 8 darshanas. Is there any different name for it? See, the Shad darshanas are different. The Sankhya, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Yoga. Those are the Shad darshanas said by Haridarshana Suri in the Shad Darshana Samuchaya in his book. That is a different way of looking at it. That was done by a Jain scholar called Haribhadra Suri much later. The original, the original views came as Vedanta itself has a darshana. If Vedanta is a darshana, we are looking at 3 flavors of the Vedanta. That is Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishtadvaita. We are not worried about the 7 or 8. We don't want to call it darshanas. They are different Vedanta systems. We are only looking at Vedanta systems. When you are mentioning Astika Darshanas and Nastika Darshanas, that is different. For example, Astika Darshanas are Sankhya, Yoga, they're all Astika Darshanas because they believe in the Vedas. The Nastika Darshanas like Buddhism, Jainism, Charvaka Mata, they are Nastika Darshanas. We are not dealing with those systems. We are directly dealing with the 14 Vidyasthanas and what come out of it, which is Vedanta, and in particular, the Bhagavad Gita, which summarizes this Upanishads. With that, if there are no other questions, we can summarize and say, yes, we welcome you to this course. And till now, what I have found is this course, it opens up as the entry door to Vedanta and trying to understand Vedanta from a impartial view and try to find common ground between these Vedantas and know very well that all these 3 Vedantas are very useful for our spiritual progress. With that, we end. Thank you. Namaste to everyone. Asmat Guru Pyo Namaha.